Welcome back, everyone, to Echoes of Ihsan. Tonight we'll be going on a deep dive into a practice that carries a lot of spiritual weight, especially during Ramadan. We're talking about night prayer. We'll be getting our insights from Sahih Bukhari, specifically Book 32, which focuses on praying at night in Ramadan. You might know it as Taraweeh.
It really captures what Ramadan is all about, wouldn't you say? It's about reflecting and self-improvement and trying to get closer to Allah. I mean, what better time than at night when everything is quiet to really nurture that connection?
Absolutely. There's a certain peace to the night, a serenity that just makes it the perfect time to turn to God. And the hadiths we'll be looking at give such amazing insights into how important this is, from the rewards for people who pray at night to how the Prophet Muhammad himself used to pray. We'll even talk about Laylat al-Qadr, the night of power, which is said to be more blessed than the 1,000 months.
Oh yeah, Laylat al-Qadr. An incredibly important night, a chance to receive so many blessings. But before we get into that, let's talk about why night prayer during Ramadan is so important in the first place.
Okay, let's break it down. Right away, Hadiths 226 and 227 tell us about a huge reward. For those who pray at night during Ramadan with sincere faith, it says that all your previous sins will be forgiven. Can you imagine? A clean slate, just by doing this beautiful act of worship.
It's quite a promise, but what's really interesting is that it emphasizes sincerity. Or ikhlas. You can't just go through the motions. It has to come from a true desire to be close to Allah. The reward is great, but you earn it through honest devotion.
It's like the prayer itself shows our love for Allah, expressing our thanks, our dependence, our need for His mercy and guidance.
Exactly. And it's interesting to think about how Ramadan is a time for cleansing, both physically and spiritually. We fast and avoid food and drink, but we also cleanse our souls through prayer, turning away from worldly things and focusing on God.
It's a beautiful parallel, isn't it? Both fasting and prayer work together to purify us from the inside and out, so that by the end of Ramadan we're renewed and closer to Allah.
For sure. It shows how Islam cares about our whole well-being, both physical and spiritual. It understands that we're complex and our needs go beyond just material things. But one thing that's important to note is that even though these rewards are so great, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't make it mandatory to pray at night as a group.
You're right. Hadiths 228 and 229 talk about what the Prophet himself did. It mentions that some people started praying with him because they saw him doing it. But he hesitated to make it a rule. Why do you think that was?
Well, Hadith 229 gives us some insight. The Prophet was worried that it might be too much for some people and that it might make it harder for them to participate consistently. He was worried that they would feel pressured to do something they weren't ready for, and it would become a chore instead of something they enjoyed.
That says so much about his compassion and how well he understood people. He understood that faith is a journey, not a race. It's about finding a sustainable pace, one that helps us grow spiritually without getting burned out.
That's right. Islam emphasizes doing things gradually and consistently. It's not about forcing yourself to do something you can't keep up with. It's about connecting with Allah in a way that you can continue throughout your life.
So starting small and finding a good pace and focusing on quality over quantity, those are the most important things when it comes to praying at night. Speaking of praying together, though,
Yeah.
how did Taraweeh, the way we do it now, come about?
Taraweeh. It's such a beautiful part of Ramadan. And it really shows the wisdom and adaptability of the early Muslims. In Hadith 227, we see how Caliph Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, made Taraweeh into a group prayer. He saw people praying on their own or in little groups and realized that they could be more unified. So he brought them all together under the leadership of Ubay bin Ka'b, who would recite the Quran.
So it went from individuals and small groups to everyone praying together, led by someone who knew the Quran well. That's a pretty big change. What effect do you think that had?
Just imagine it. All these Muslims from all walks of life coming together in the mosque to pray, their voices echoing the beautiful words of the Quran. It must have been incredibly powerful. It must have really fostered a feeling of community, shared devotion, spiritual upliftment.
It really does paint a beautiful picture. To be surrounded by others who share your faith, your goals, your yearning to be close to Allah. I can see why Taraweeh is so important to Muslims around the world.
It is. It really shows how wise the early caliphs were and how committed they were to keeping the spirit of the Prophet's teachings alive, while still adapting to the changing needs of the community.
It's amazing how tradition and innovation can go together, how the essence of something can stay the same while the way it's done changes with the times. But there's an interesting detail to this story.
Yeah.
Caliph Umar said that praying alone later at night might actually be more beneficial for your soul.
Yes.
He thought that those quiet moments before dawn, when you can really focus, were particularly special.
It shows that faith isn't one-dimensional. It encourages us to find balance between our obligations as a group and our own personal journeys with Allah. Praying with others is great, but that individual connection you foster is also super valuable.
It's about finding that perfect spot between expressing your faith outwardly and that journey of your heart.
Exactly. Both are important, both help you grow, and finding that balance is key.
It's a dance, back and forth, between the group and the individual.
Between the outer and the inner. But let's go back to the Prophet Muhammad's own practice for a minute. Hadith 230 really breaks down his routine during Ramadan.
Yes. It's amazing how devoted he was during this time. He's a real model for us.
Definitely. It says he would pray 11 rakats with long periods of standing and prostration, really deep reverence and contemplation.
What I find really striking is that it talks about how beautiful and long his prayers were, showing that he was really present and mindful. It reminds us that prayer isn't just about moving your body. It's about your heart and mind being fully focused on Allah. And the next part of the hadith really shows this. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, asked the Prophet if he sleeps before praying fitr. His answer is just incredible. He said, "Oh, Aisha, my eyes sleep, but my heart does not sleep."
Oh, wow.
Powerful, right?
Incredibly. It shows that he was so spiritually aware that even when he slept, his heart was awake, connected to Allah. It's something we should all aim for, especially during Ramadan.
It's like the connection was so strong, so ingrained, that it went beyond his conscious mind.
Absolutely. It's amazing to see the power of consistent practice and sincere devotion. And, this leads us perfectly to the mysterious night of power, Laylat al-Qadr, a night full of mystery, but also spiritual power.
Yes. Hadith 231 talks about how Laylat al-Qadr is more blessed than 1,000 months. Can you believe that? One night has the potential to change you more than a whole lifetime of normal nights.
It really is amazing. It shows just how incredible the opportunity for spiritual growth is on this night.
It makes sense why Muslims all over the world want to spend that night praying, asking for forgiveness, and doing good deeds. But it's a mystery, isn't it? We know it's in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, but we don't know the exact date.
Right. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told us to look for Laylat al-Qadr in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, especially the odd-numbered nights. That's in Hadiths 232 through 240.
So instead of telling us when it is, the Prophet told us to seek it, to work for it, to really commit to worship during those last 10 nights. It's almost like a test from God, a way to see if we're really sincere.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in not knowing for sure. It makes us be devoted the whole time, not just on one night. We have to treat every night with respect and sincerity, do more good deeds, and deepen our connection with Allah.
It's like a spiritual treasure hunt. Keeps us engaged and striving to be our best throughout Ramadan. But what about specific things we should do on this night? Do the hadiths tell us that?
For sure. Hadith 241 tells us what the Prophet did during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. He would tighten his waist belt, which means he was committing to praying more intensely. He would spend the entire night praying and even wake up his family to join him in seeking Allah's blessings.
So it's not just about figuring out the right night. It's about trying your best to worship and do good deeds throughout those last 10 nights. Like each night can be Laylat al-Qadr.
Exactly. The point is to go above and beyond what you normally do, to really make the most of this blessed time. Whether you actually experience Laylat al-Qadr or not, all that effort you put in will bring you closer to Allah and give you so many spiritual rewards.
It's a good reminder that how you get there is just as important as getting there.
Absolutely. But we also have to remember that even though Ramadan is such a great opportunity to grow spiritually, especially through night prayer, what we learn during this month shouldn't end when Ramadan ends.
Oh, so you're saying that even though we get special rewards for night prayer in Ramadan, the idea of connecting with Allah at night is something we should keep doing all year round. It's like we've tasted something amazing during Ramadan and we don't want it to end.
Right. And there's a reason why we feel that way. Our hearts need connection, and connecting with our Creator at night, when there are no distractions, is the best way to do it.
It's like we're making a special time in our day, even if it's just for a few minutes, to reconnect with our source, to recharge, to find comfort in God's presence.
I like that. And remember, Islam understands that people have different limits. We're not all expected to pray for hours and hours, especially outside of Ramadan, even just a few rakats. with sincerity and presence, can make a huge difference.
So doing it consistently, even a little bit at a time, is better than doing a lot once in a while. It's about making it a part of who we are, not just something we do for 1 month.
Exactly. And when we think about it that way, not as a chore, but as a chance to connect and renew ourselves, it takes on a whole new meaning. It becomes a safe place for our souls, a time to be honest with our Creator, to ask for His help and forgiveness.
It's like having a direct line to God,
Yeah.
a line that's always open, waiting for us to talk to Him. And this reminds me of something we talked about before. Caliph Umar said that praying alone at night might be even better than praying with others. It seems like being close to Allah on your own is really important.
For sure. And that's not to say that praying together isn't important. It's great for building unity and strengthening the bonds between Muslims. But when you pray alone, it's just you and Allah. You can really be yourself.
You can be totally honest and vulnerable.
Yeah.
And let God see you completely. It's in those quiet moments
Mhm.
when you're truly pouring your heart out. That prayer becomes really powerful.
Exactly. And when you get used to turning to Allah at night, it starts to affect how you act during the day, too. You become more aware of Him, more aware of what you're doing, and how it affects you and others.
It's like you take some of that peacefulness from the night with you into the day. You're constantly reminded of your connection to God, and that gives you strength and comfort. But here's a big question. How do we actually use these amazing lessons about night prayer in our own lives? How do we make this real for ourselves?
That's a really important question, and it's one that everyone has to answer for themselves. There's no right way to do it. But I think it starts with realizing just how powerful it can be. To connect with Allah at night, it's about making time in your life, even just a few minutes every day, to turn to Him.
It's about finding what works for you, what feels real and meaningful. Maybe you recite some verses from the Quran, or you talk to Allah from your heart, or maybe you just sit in silence and feel His presence. It's not about the specific actions. It's about the sincerity behind them.
Exactly. It's about actively trying to nurture that connection, to build that safe space inside you where you can find comfort and guidance and renewal, and even small things, if you do them consistently, can make a huge difference over time.
So don't try to do too much at once. Just start where you are and build from there.
Right. Find a rhythm that works for you, something that fits into your life and nourishes your soul. And even if you mess up, even if you miss a day or two, the important thing is to get back on track and keep going.
It's about progress, not perfection. Keep trying to connect with Allah, knowing that it's a lifelong journey, a process of constantly growing and becoming better.
Absolutely. You know, some people feel overwhelmed when we talk about this, especially night prayer. It's normal to feel that way. Our lives are busy. But think about how you'd feel if you didn't have that connection with Allah, if you let that spiritual part of yourself fade away.
That's a good point. When we don't make time for Allah, it's like we're choosing to neglect the part of ourselves. We're missing out on something that can make our lives so much better.
That's right. And it's interesting. We often talk about the rewards of night prayer. Forgiveness, closeness to Allah. Those are good reasons to do it, of course. But sometimes if we just focus on the prize, we miss the point. It becomes like a trade. I do this, so Allah gives me that, instead of an act of love and devotion.
I see what you mean. It's like, are we doing it because we have to or because we genuinely want to? When we only think about the reward, we might miss the beauty of what prayer really is.
Exactly. Remember that hadith where Aisha asks the Prophet if he sleeps before witr? He says, "My eyes sleep, but my heart does not sleep." He wasn't doing it for a reward. It was a part of who he was. He constantly felt connected to Allah, and his love for Allah was stronger than any desire for something in this world.
So it's more about loving the act of connecting itself, not about what you get out of it. You do it because you want to be close to Allah,
Yeah.
just for the sake of being close to Him.
Yes. It's like any relationship. The more time you spend with someone, the more you understand them, and the closer you become. If you nurture that connection, it brings you joy, comfort, guidance. That's the beauty of night prayer. It's an invitation to get to know God better.
It's about a love that's not about getting anything specific, a love that comes straight from your heart, a love that's happy just to be with the beloved.
I like how you put that. You know, this brings us to something a lot of people wonder about, especially when we talk about Laylat al-Qadr, the night of power.
Ah, yes. We've talked about how important it is to try hard during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, to really dedicate ourselves to worship, to try to find that night of amazing blessings. But wouldn't it be easier if we knew exactly when it was? Couldn't we just focus all our energy on that one night?
That's something a lot of people think about, and I think there's a reason why Allah keeps it a mystery. Think about it. If we knew exactly when it was, would our worship be as sincere? Would we be as devoted during the other nights? Or would we just do the bare minimum and save all our energy for that one night?
I see your point. Not knowing makes us work hard the whole time.
We have to treat every night like it could be Laylat al-Qadr, with excitement and a desire to please Allah. If we knew for sure, we might just relax during the other nights and only try hard on the one night we know about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there's another reason too. What if the real meaning of Laylat al-Qadr isn't about the specific date, but about the state of your heart? What if it's about being ready to receive God's grace whenever it comes?
So it's like we were talking about before, being open to Allah, not just during Ramadan, but all the time, always seeking Him, always ready for His blessings, no matter what day it is.
That's it. We have the potential to connect with Allah in a deep way at any moment. Laylat al-Qadr might be a specific night, but the feeling of wanting to be close to God, the openness to His blessings, that's something we can have every day.
Wow, I never thought about it like that. It's not about finding the right date. It's about becoming the kind of person who's always ready for that connection with God, who's always seeking Him.
And it's not just about being open to blessings. It's also about being ready for the tough times, the storms that life throws at us. If we have that inner strength, that resilience, that unwavering faith, we can handle anything.
So it's about building a strong spiritual core,
Yes.
a deep trust in Allah that will get us through anything.
Exactly. And it's interesting to think about what the night represents. It's dark, uncertain, sometimes scary, but it's also calm, reflective, a time to look inward. It's a time when we can take off the masks we wear, forget about the roles we play, and just be ourselves with God.
It's like the darkness helps the light of faith shine even brighter when there aren't any distractions. We can really look inside ourselves.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes in that stillness, in that darkness, we find a strength inside us that we didn't know we had. It's like the challenges we face, the hard times, make us dig deeper and find a well of faith and courage inside us.
So it's not about avoiding problems. It's about facing them head on, with the strength and guidance we get from being close to Allah.
Absolutely. That's why praying at night is so powerful. In those quiet moments when we reflect, ask for help, surrender to God, we build an unbreakable bond with Him, a bond that can get us through anything.
It's like we're weaving a tapestry of faith, thread by thread, prayer by prayer, until it becomes something strong and resilient that can handle all of life's ups and downs.
That's a great analogy. And it's important to remember that we're not alone on this journey. We have the Quran to guide us, the Prophet Muhammad's example, and the support of other Muslims. We're all in this together, trying to get closer to Allah, earn His love, and live lives that reflect His mercy.
It's amazing to think that we're part of something so big, a global family united by our faith and our love for Allah.
And in that family, we have so much knowledge, wisdom, support. We can learn from each other, share our struggles and our successes, and encourage each other along the way.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. It's totally true for our faith journey.
It really is. And after all this talk about rewards and rituals and stuff, what really strikes me is how powerful connection is. Ramadan is a special time to get closer to Allah, to feel really close to Him. It's like we have this time set aside where we can focus on being in His presence, feel His love and mercy so deeply.
It's like Ramadan helps us grow faster spiritually.
Yes.
We're more aware of God.
Yes.
And it makes us want to seek that connection even more.
Exactly. And even though this month is perfect for spiritual growth, the feeling of wanting to connect with Allah, of wanting His grace, that shouldn't end when Ramadan is over. We should take what we've learned and make it a part of our daily lives.
So it's about taking that spark of devotion and keeping it alive all year round, letting it guide us, give our lives more meaning.
Exactly. And even the smallest things, if you do them consistently, can make a big difference. Just like a tiny seed, if you plant it and take care of it, can grow into a huge tree. Our efforts to connect with Allah are like that.
It reminds us that every step we take towards Allah matters.
It does.
No matter how small it seems. He sees it and appreciates it. It's about always trying, always turning our hearts to Him, knowing that He's always there for us.
Absolutely. This reminds me of something Imam al-Ghazali said. He said the human heart is like a polished mirror. Whatever you put in front of a mirror, it reflects it back. Our hearts are like that. If we fill them with thoughts of Allah, with love for Him, with wanting to please Him, our whole being will reflect that light. It'll attract good things, beauty, blessings.
I love that. So it's not just about what we do, but what's in our hearts. It's about being pure, aligned with God.
Exactly. But if we let our hearts get filled with distractions, with negative things, with chasing temporary pleasures, our inner world gets cloudy, we can't see God's light as well, it's harder to feel his presence, to find that peace and happiness that comes from knowing him, loving him, serving him. That's a good reminder to pay attention to what we're putting into our hearts, what we're thinking about, who we're spending time with, what we're watching and listening to. We need to create an environment, both inside and outside, that nourishes our souls and helps us get closer to Allah.
Yes. And when we talk about night prayer, it's not just about standing and doing the motions. It's about being present, aware, connected to God on a deeper level. It's about making time for quiet reflection, looking inward, talking to Allah from your heart, having that intimate conversation with the one you love.
It's about finding that safe space within yourself, where you can be real with God, totally honest and vulnerable, knowing that he accepts you, loves you, cherishes you just as you are.
And it's in that space of letting go, of relying completely on God, that we often find the most comfort, the deepest healing, the biggest transformation. We stop trying to control everything. We stop trying to figure it all out, and we just trust in his wisdom, his love, his mercy.
It's like we're shedding all those layers, all those pretenses.
And getting back to who we really are. Pure, connected to our source, the source of our strength, our peace. It's about remembering that we are God's beloved servants, created for a purpose, guided by his light, and meant for eternal happiness.
You said that beautifully. And it's in those moments of real, authentic connection with God that we get the guidance, the clarity, the strength we need to face life's challenges. It's like we're tapping into a never-ending source of wisdom,
of love,
of support. It's always there, just waiting for us to connect.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into night prayer during Ramadan, what's the most important message you want our listeners to take away? What should they really think about as they continue on their spiritual journeys?
You know, we've talked a lot about rewards and rituals, but what really stands out to me is how powerful connection is. Ramadan is a special time to deepen our bond with Allah, to feel really close to him. And night prayer is such an important part of that. It's like this concentrated period of time where we can just immerse ourselves in his presence, nurture that connection, really experience his love and mercy.
It's like a jumpstart for our spiritual growth.
Yes.
We become so much more aware of the divine, and it sets us on a path to keep seeking that connection with even more intention.
Right. But you know, it's not just about this month. This feeling of wanting to be close to Allah, of wanting his grace, that shouldn't end with Ramadan. We need to take those lessons, those insights, and weave them into our daily lives.
So it's about taking that ember of devotion and keeping it burning bright all year long.
Exactly. And even small, consistent efforts can make a big difference. It's like planting a seed. You have to nurture it with care and patience. And eventually, it'll grow into a strong, beautiful tree. Our connection with Allah is like that too.
Every step we take towards him matters.
Absolutely.
He sees it.
Yes.
Appreciates it. And it's about that continuous effort to keep turning our hearts towards him, knowing that he's always there to meet us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think a lot of people get caught up in thinking about the rewards and the rituals, but the most important thing is that transformation that happens when we connect with God. And Ramadan, with its focus on night prayer, it's like this incredible opportunity to strengthen that connection, to really experience that closeness with our Creator.
It's like we're being given this special time to deepen our relationship with him.
Exactly. And while Ramadan is a perfect environment for this kind of growth, it shouldn't stop there. Take those lessons, those beautiful insights you've gained, and weave them into your everyday life.
Make it part of who you are.
Exactly. Even small, consistent efforts can have a huge impact over time, like a tiny seed growing into a magnificent tree.
So don't underestimate the power of those small steps.
That's right. So my message to everyone listening is this. Really embrace this Ramadan. Immerse yourself in the practice of night prayer and feel that amazing transformation that comes from connecting with Allah in the stillness of the night. But don't let it end there. Carry that connection, that closeness with you throughout the year. Let it shape your thoughts, your actions, your interactions with the world. Because when you nurture that connection, when you seek Allah's grace, you'll find a wellspring of peace, strength, guidance that will support you on your journey to a more meaningful, fulfilling life.
That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. This has been such an enriching conversation.
It's been a pleasure. I hope this Ramadan is a time of deep spiritual growth and positive change for all of us.
And to all of you listening, we hope this deep dive has inspired you to discover the beauty and the power of night prayer, both during Ramadan and throughout the year. May your hearts be filled with God's light, and may your journeys be guided by His wisdom and grace.